along with some of his colleagues, he started the Sony Corporation. And the electronics industry was transformed forever. I don't think anybody in here is old enough to remember vacuum tubes in TVs and radios. Come on, seriously? You, well, John, I believe it of you. So you remember those massive tubes and then the pieces of equipment, the radios, it was a 2 or 3 man job to pick those things up and maneuver and move them around. The transistor made it possible to carry your radio to the beach and have it powered by a battery.
The tubes are not affected by EMP.
How many tubes are there around anymore? Of course, I think it's some sophisticated electronics they keep using, right? Anyway, the electronics industry was transformed forever. Now, the interesting thing is that the General Electric Corporation had been close to developing the transistor themselves. However, they abandoned the project because they thought it might interfere with their vast vacuum tube business. How is it possible that they missed it? How can it be that as the creation of the automobile came about, the blacksmiths and the livery stables and all those supporting the horse and buggy trade missed it? After all, they were the logical group to adapt this new means of transportation. The reason is that when transformational technology arrives, those involved in the industry affected are often blind to the shift in paradigm required to see it coming. You need to be a visionary to recognize transformational breakthroughs. So we're going to talk about one of those transformational breakthroughs today, one that directly impacts you and me and the most powerful industry the world has ever known, the pharmaceutical industry. We're going to talk about redox biochemistry, a breakthrough technology that is generally regarded as one of the most significant health, anti-aging, and athletic performance discoveries of our lifetime. A breakthrough that was once considered impossible. Let me introduce a concept which we will expand upon in a few minutes. We live and die at the cellular level. How many of you have heard of this new field of scientific research called redox biochemistry, other than from me? Other than from me. Okay? How many of you have heard of redox signaling molecules, other than from me? Okay? This is a clear indication of transformational technology. It requires insight. It requires belief. It requires a soul for something that people are not ordinarily looking for. This field of research has its own set of peer-reviewed publications, and these publications have featured more than 14,000 articles on redox biochemistry. There are more than 1,200 books written on redox biochemistry. I have 2 of them here. This one started out as a 30-page informational brochure. It turned into a 530-page medical school textbook on the impact of redox on all of the systems in the human body. This book is considerably smaller. You can read it in one afternoon, and I guarantee you, you won't understand it any better than the large medical school textbook. Since this field of research has become mainstream, there have been Nobel Prizes awarded to 5 researchers, 3 in 1998 and 2 in 2013. These are the 3 gentlemen that received the Nobel Prize in 1998 for their discoveries concerning nitric oxide as a signaling molecule in the cardiovascular system. The National Institutes of Health in Washington, D.C. have also awarded grants totaling millions of dollars for continued research in this field. We cannot see what's happening inside ourselves, but changes in our skin we can see. Similar changes that take place inside our bodies we cannot see. But we've got to know that they are that we're aging on the inside too. On the left in each photo set, we can see the effects of aging. Lines, age spots, wrinkles, blemishes, scars. On the right, notice the improvements. Excuse me. So what are redox molecules? Imagine that our 75 trillion cells in our bodies are tiny bags of salt water. 70% of our bodies is saline by weight. When you go in for a procedure in the hospital, what do they put in your arm? Saline, right? Okay? There are tiny organelles inside each of these cells called mitochondria. These are our cellular power plants, and they produce ATP. ATP is a molecule that our bodies use for energy. These little power plants are so important to life that they can make up 50% of our dry body weight. If we're 70% saline, 30% is dry material, half of that dry material will just be made up of the mitochondria, the power plant organelles in our body. If they suddenly stopped working, we'd be dead in minutes. ATP stands for adenosine triphosphate, for those of you that were wondering. I know Harvey was wondering. He was looking over here and a little concerned. Desiree was wondering too. The byproducts of this energy production are called redox signaling molecules. These redox signaling molecules were considered waste products until those three researchers who got the Nobel Prize in 1998 published their findings on nitric oxide. It was taught in medical school that these molecules were a waste product, just like the exhaust coming out of our automobile. There are two species of redox signaling molecules, as you see on the slide. Reduced species is shown as RS, and they're also called reductants. The reactive oxygen species shown here as ROS. These are also called oxidants. You can see from the slides what these molecules do. The reductants fight free radicals, and they activate the antioxidants that our bodies produce naturally. Those antioxidants are thousands of times more effective at fighting free radicals than the antioxidants we consume in food. The oxidants are immune system communicators, and they are enemies of viruses and bacteria. So when I mentioned earlier that we live and die at the cellular level, that's exactly what I meant. We age precisely because our cells stop functioning at an optimum level. Redox signaling molecules are created in every cell in our bodies every second of every day, and they are vital to life. We age precisely because our cells stop functioning at an optimum level. We are made up of systems: cardiovascular, muscular, skeletal, pulmonary, digestive, and so on. These systems are composed of organs, the organs are composed of tissues, and the tissues are composed of cells. And our cells are controlled by redox molecules. Here is an example of one National Institutes of Health grant that was presented to the medical universities of South Carolina, $10.5 million. And it says on the bottom paragraph, the grant's scientific focus researching oxidative stress signaling. Oxidants and the resulting stress signaling promote diverse responses including cell injury, death, survival, and carcinogenesis. Oxidative stress can result in acute and chronic diseases of the cardiovascular and nervous systems, diabetes, cancer, and aging. How many of you recall that the DNA in our cells, in the nucleus of our cells, is helical in structure? Everybody's heard about this, have they not? Okay. One of the discoverers of that structure is this gentleman here, Dr. James Watson, an American geneticist and microbiologist. He was one of the researchers who discovered the structure in 1953, and he and his fellow scientists were awarded the Nobel Prize in 1962. On the 27th of February 2014, Dr. Watson published an article in The Lancet, which is a very prestigious British medical journal. In this article, Dr. Watson stated that most, if not all, medical conditions and diseases are caused by lack of reactive oxygen species, the oxidant we were talking about a moment ago, which is a redox signaling molecule. He specifically mentioned type 2 diabetes, cardiovascular disease, cancer, and, wait for it, Alzheimer's. This is a disease all by itself which is going to bankrupt this country sometime this century if we don't get this taken care of. Alzheimer's. The bad news is that as we age, our bodies produce fewer and fewer of these redox signaling molecules. Pre-adolescent children generally have 100% of the molecules. From then on, our bodies produce fewer and fewer of these until they lose about 10% per decade. So an 80-year-old adult will have only 10 to 20% of the molecules he or she had as an infant. Don't most, if not all of us, accept the connection between aging and serious diseases and threatening health conditions? The older the population gets, the more disease and death there is associated with medical conditions. This is a very well documented reality. Healthy young skin cells, as in this baby right here, completely renew every 28 days. By the time an adult gets to the age of 50, it's up to 90 days. A 200% reduction. And one of the reasons why it's easy to see the increase in the visible signs of aging. Let us take, for an example, a tonsillectomy. Everybody in here had a tonsillectomy? No? Any of you had the tonsillectomy as a baby or a young infant? I did. Any of you had it as a teenager? And if you take it as an adult, okay. For a baby, it's routine surgery. For a teenager, like this tennis playing girl here,